Ladies and gents, I've done it. I have finally now gotten ready to make my most controversial video to make. This is it. This is gonna be the most controversial video on my channel at this moment. Well, I mean, the Kyoko video is still there. I think the Kyoko video might be more controversial, where this is a more mixed opinion. But today we're gonna talk about the ending of Jojo Part 6. Oh boy, this is another kind of can of worms, but like at this point everyone's opinion is kind of accepted. Some think it's trash, some think it's good, others are in the middle. Well, by the title you're going to tell that I was not a fan of this ending, and I plan to address my reasonings why today for my second ever rant video, because I haven't done one in a long time. So folks, get ready for the next rant video, as today I'm going to address why I don't like the ending of JoJo Part 6. So before I do start this rant, I do want to address the elephant in the room. No, my complaint with Part 6's ending does not have to do with the idea of the universe resetting. In fact, I actually kind of liked the idea of the universe resets ending. I actually kind of enjoyed the idea of Jolene finally getting to live a peaceful life at the end, and actually getting a somewhat happy ending. And my only real complaint with the Irenaverse thing is that I didn't like the idea of it being alternative counterparts to Anasui, who ended up with Jolene. Probably would have been better if just Jolene, like Irene, I meant, actually just married to no one. And I honestly just don't like the idea of it being Anasui. And I actually do kind of like the closure to the characters. Jotaro we get to see in Stardust Crusaders, and we get to see him grow from that to Diamonds Unbreakable all the way to Stone Ocean. And we also get a short but sweet arc from Jolene Cujo. But here's my first complaint. And this is my biggest complaint with Part 6. The rest are more nitpicky, you could say. Well, this is always what made me not like the ending of 6. While true we get closures to Jotaro and Jolene, Joseph, Josuke, and Jarno get no closures. Like, it basically feels like they never mattered and they're just removed. In other words, they got Poochied. And no, I don't mean Poochie from JoJo, I mean Poochie from that one episode of The Simpsons where the writers just straight up removed them and they went back to their home planet but died the way there. And that honestly sucks, because I actually really enjoyed their arcs. And in other words, it just makes Diamond is Unbreakable and Golden Wind, and heck, to a certain extent, Battle Tendency just feel like filler, and basically stuff you could realistically skip without even really needing anything. And yes, I know JoJo part skippers are anti-part skippers are very toxic, but realistically, you could skip part 2, 4, and 5, and you're not really missing out on the plots. And it makes it feel like that here, and that's kind of why you could realistically just skip those parts, and I probably wouldn't even care. Like, I'm just gonna say it right here. Joseph, Josuke, and Jarno were really done dirty. They all three never really got some satisfying conclusions to their endings, like their arcs. Like, Jarno you could argue, and maybe Joseph, but Josuke is still left, and he just doesn't really get a proper end to his arc. It only feels like Jotaro and Jolene are the only characters in this who actually decide to get a proper send-off, whereas the other three just don't really get that send-off, and it's like, they don't really matter at the end. Oh yeah, and speaking of Jolene, here's my next real complaint with this ending. Issue number 2. Jolene getting the weather report disc means nothing. Like, I'll say it. Weather reports, like the whole thing with Emporio getting it and getting the killing blow, that was satisfying. I'll admit that. It was super cool. It was whatever. But you don't really. I feel like it would have made more sense if it were Jolene instead. Because, I mean, think about it. Jolene was being hyped up to get it. Like, the whole conclusion had Anasui give Jolene the disc. Jolene was going to be the one to get the killing blow, and it was going to be satisfying. But it all goes nowhere, and she dies. Like, I get why she died. She had to save Emporio, and she trusted him left. But it just boils down to nothingness. It just Jolene dies, and it's over. Deal with it. She's gone and dead. And it feels like it made no sense to do that whole hype up. Why do you hype Jolene up to be the one with the weather report disc? Why not just have Jolene snuggle onto the disc herself without hyping it up? Maybe they could have done something like Jolene finds the disc and like, oh, I better keep this. It may be handy in case something bad were to happen. Would have made more sense than, oh, hey, look, I'm gonna be the one who gets this disc and kill him in blow. Psych, I'm dead. And on a side note, I do feel like Jolene with Weather Report would have been a really cool moment, with her being the one who saves the family at the end. And also on another side note, I do think she might just die against Poochie at the end. Maybe like a parallel to Jonathan's death with Dio would have been really nice. And yeah, and overall, the entire thing with the Irenaverse. Now, this is another complaint I have, and that's the Irenaverse is very inconsistent. I'll explain. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, parts 1 through 5 still happen, but there's some evidence to support that. You can't just remove Poochie and assume everything's all happy and stuff. And a lot of things would change. For starters, let's go back to Jotaro. In fact, let's jump the clock. Let's go back to part 4 Jotaro in this. Since Jotaro is more than likely going to be Irene, it's more unlikely Jotaro now lives a better life. Now let's go back to Diamonds Unbreakable, Josuke's part. Without Jotaro, Josuke dies to Kira. And not only that, but everyone else dies to Kira. This would include Koichi. Koichi who ended up going to Italy. The same Koichi who saved Giorno from dying from Black Sabbath. And if Giorno dies to Black Sabbath, well, guess what? Bucciarati dies to Diavolo. And not only that, but so does Narancia, Fugo, Abacchio, and Mista. And Trish. They all die as well, thus meaning Diavolo gets the arrow and reigns supreme. You get what I mean, right? You think killing off Poochie is going to cause all that to change for the better? No, removing Poochie from the story and changing everyone's lives around ends up being the worst case scenario. The chance of Jotaro's life being changed around is for the worst. That means no matter what, the Irenaverse is more depressing than you think it would be. The beloved characters like Josuke and Giorno all die. And their deaths are technically in vain because they all die because of a villain, because Jotaro is not there to show up and stop him. And on an even darker side note, there's a chance Dio probably doesn't even exist either. I mean, which isn't really a dark side note, but it will be dark when you remember that if Dio doesn't exist, Giorno doesn't exist. So in other words, Giorno, either way, Team Bucciarati is completely and utterly screwed because this inconsistent ending had to come in and basically kill it. It basically assassinated the Jojo world building at this point. To me, it does. And this is why I hate the ending. It's inconsistent. It ruins mostly everything. It doesn't give proper send-offs to other beloved characters. It basically takes away Jolene's big moment and gives it to a stupid kid. And not only that, but to justify it as, oh, everyone still goes the same, makes no sense when you remember the fact that still, Diavolo and Poochie have no links to Dio, meaning that, in other words, they're probably gonna still win. And if you want to go technical and say, oh, Dio never was around, it's just Poochie doesn't exist, Dio still exists, all that. Okay, if all Dio's minions don't exist, that's what I was trying to say, then Okuyasu's dad doesn't exist. Then Okuyasu doesn't have any interest in becoming a stand user, meaning Josuke still dies to Kira. Wow. You all want to say that this is gonna all be all good and all that? No, it isn't. Either way, the world is screwed. Everyone's gonna die. It's like, legitimately, only Jolene and Jotaro would technically get a happy ending if this is the case. And I don't want to hear people and there's no proof to support that parts 1 through 5 still happened. So don't try to look up a fake article where a Rocky quote-unquote confirmed it. It's still fake. And before you assume anything, no, I don't hate Jojo. It's just that my love for parts 4 and 5 technically died after part 6 came out and screwed it over. In fact, that's why also I'm not a huge fan of 6. Parts 4, 5, and 6 are good, I will give credit. But in either way, parts 4 and 5, I don't care as much for anymore because they never mattered in the story to begin with. And part 6, I don't really care that much for is because it destroys the world building of Jojo. And to be fair, I'm not a super huge fan of 1 and 2, but like, still, I guess the only good part that never got assassinated is Stardust Crusaders in. So, that's my video. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time. And I hope you enjoyed the rant, because this one was eventually gonna come. I knew it would come one day. But, that's the end of the rant. I hope you enjoyed my video. Bye.